This is the Steele Report.
This week on the Steele Report, just ahead of Tuesday's Election Day, you're going to hear directly from the three candidates for Cedar Falls Mayor, and our program begins right now.
Now from KWWL, this is the Steele Report.
Welcome to this week's program. As we hear from the three candidates for Cedar Falls Mayor, we're going to hear from them individually and alphabetically. So we're going to begin right now with current Cedar Falls Mayor, Jim Brown. So please welcome Jim Brown as the current two-term mayor of Cedar Falls, seeking a third term against challengers Rob Green and Jim Skein, from whom you will hear later in this show. We're going to be going in alphabetical order. I want to point that out right away. So Mayor Brown defeated former mayor, the late John Cruz, back in 2015, the runoff election, to win his first term. He spent 6 years, as you know, on the Cedar Falls Board of Education, a specialist in business development. Mayor Brown is a UNI graduate. He and his wife, Corrine, have two daughters. So your 2015 campaign, you promised to bring a different leadership style to the city of Cedar Falls. How have you accomplished that, do you think?
Well, I think the leadership style towards professional meetings when we conduct business at city council meetings. It was ironically tested probably, 8 or 9 months into my first term, because the flood of 2016, the highest flood level, second highest flood level the city's ever seen, tested obviously relying on staff, relying on what happened in 08, and just making sure folks were informed what was going on. So I think I want to carry those things forward as well into the next term if I'm so fortunate enough.
I had this as part of my notes. The 2016, you had to deal with the second worst flood in Cedar Falls history. And once again, downtown was saved. North Cedar had to bear the brunt, as they always do. So what are your plans to help the residents of North Cedar deal with future flooding and the fire situation? What's your plans there for North Cedar residents?
North Cedar right now, they have good advocacy. Right now, the council approved in the CIP $500,000 trailway up through Center Street there on one side, up just going north and south. And we believe that from that kind of trail system, if you will, that we'll see some bigger and better development, both commercial, industrial, and housing. And there's other discussion that council will be having in our upcoming goal setting as well, just in terms of what the city might be able to do to prompt some additional housing development up that area.
Yeah, would you agree that North Cedar deserves better sometimes?
Well, all citizens deserve best, and certainly not going to point out, the different parts of the city in terms of what they get, what they don't get. It clearly is just a matter of how council moves forward and decides, what goes their way each time.
Okay, so the defining issue in this campaign, and we're talking to the other candidates too, the Public Safety Officer Program. You and Director of Public Safety, Chief Jeff Olson, get most of the brunt of criticism on this. But this program does go back a number of years, way before your administrations. Why do you think it has become such a hot button issue this time around? Does it have to do with all the firefighter resignations, or what do you think it is this time?
It's emotional regardless. You're correct. It's gone back a number of years. It's really the same debate in a different decade. I look at the current model as we have it, and back in 2014 there was the budget reduction task force. Citizens and staff came together, looked for efficiencies from within every department of our city, and part of it was the public safety. So as you move that forward, it's before my time. I do fully support it. The irony is I haven't voted for or against this public safety model. That's not the purview of the mayor, when the council's been so supportive in terms of their voting record along those lines. But really we're talking about cross-training staff, and it happens all over in various industries, and builds efficiencies into what we have as a city. And are we safe? And I think the last year and a half, folks cannot look back at anything in Cedar Falls and say we weren't safe. It just clearly, I think, is before us.
Well, that takes me into my question here. You have two daughters, and you have a family here in town. So keeping that in mind, tell us why you think the city is safer, as safe, or not as safe from before the PSO program is initiated.
Sure, absolutely. Well, ancillarily, we have more police on the street. We have more firefighters at the scene, whether they're the mobile fire department from the public safety model to get there first and to save life and to save property. But then also taking a look at staff right now, we have 6 to 8 firefighters full-time at the station as we move forward. Today, if there was an accident, our ISO rating came back as a 3. We're one of the top 3.5% of the departments in the state of Iowa, and as you know, 90% of the departments in the state of Iowa are volunteer. So it's really just a matter of how you find that balance, efficiency, and safety, and I think we have it.
Well, I noticed that Scott Dix, the Cedar Falls firefighter, had an editorial in the Courier, and he believes that rating is going to go from 3 to 4, which would be a negative. And what do you think is going to happen along that line?
I go back to a year ago, they thought it was going to be a 4 and a 5, and insurance rates were going to go up and the sky was going to fall. It didn't happen. ISO gave us credit for 11,000 hours of fire department training, 5,000 hours of police training, and we're only going to continue to improve that.
Okay, I'm going to ask you this, as I'll ask Rob Green in the next segment. As you view it, when a Cedar Falls police officer arrives on the scene of a fire, are they a police officer, a PSO, or a firefighter? And how does that change happen? Do they need to change their uniforms even to be a firefighter?
That's the beauty of cross-training. They are literally all three wrapped up into what's called a public safety officer. If they're on the street, a call comes in, there's numerous examples of them being able to either suit up or not have to suit up, utilize our CAF system, which produces 300 gallons equivalent of water, and we have examples of saving life and property. So it's a perfect scenario for a community like ours, a safe community like Cedar Falls. We average roughly 6 to 8 structural fires each year. So for that, having those folks show up sooner as a public safety officer is a benefit to all, including prompting the fire truck that will be coming or fire trucks that will be coming to help mitigate if it gets any more serious.
Yeah, the city has been fortunate. There have not been any serious fire deaths or injuries, to my knowledge, in recent years. Is that the way you see it?
Absolutely. The police department last year, they average about 17,000 calls.
17,000 calls.
Each year,
wow.
And it ranges from a simple report to, a bank robbery. Our fire department averages roughly 2,000 calls, but half of those are medical calls, and we contract our ambulance service with Mercy One. So again, you take the severity of what those 1,000 or 2,000 calls come from to the fire department, but you look at the records, and again, the serious structural fires are 6 to 8 per year.
So the city is acting like an actuarial. I mean, you're basically, it's a risk management type of thing, it looks like. And is it saving the city money? Some people say it is not. Dr. Jim Young, who wrote an editorial I saw of the Courier, believes it is. He's a supporter of BSO. So where does that stand?
It does save, because in essence, as we move forward with more public safety officers, then we're going to be able to hire from within, whether they're public safety assigned to police, public safety assigned to fire. And you do mention a good point. Every city, every organization has to look, and I'm not sure most organizations, you budget for the worst case scenario. You plan for it. And we have plans for that scenario, but you don't budget for it, and that's the balance we're finding in Cedar Falls.
And the various fire stations being closed, and we mentioned North Cedar, so any change in that in the near future?
North Cedar, I don't think council has the votes for that. It was closed after the flood of 2008, budgetary reasons mainly, and now we have the new public safety building south of town. The 18th and Main station has been open for those proper response times to North Cedar and Northwest Cedar Falls. I believe in the future, council will take a serious look in additional property and an additional new satellite fire station along First Street to even better prepare for those.
Could you make a promise to viewers here today that if you are reelected, that you will try to bring both sides to the table? Because as an observer of this, a lot of people say neither side is willing to budge right now. It looks to me like there's a lot of room for talk, maybe to bring it closer to negotiation.
Absolutely. We've reached out the last year and a half. I've gone down to the fire station with a couple of council people and staff, told those folks, we want you, we need you, you can be a part of something great. We've gone down there to drop off treats, Green and I, during Christmas Day. Also brought in the 2 union leaders of the state to try to sit down and talk. We just seem to keep hitting brick walls there. I do promise to continue those efforts moving forward if I'm fortunate enough to be elected.
The Roundabout program, which was criticized heavily before, has won a national award. A lot of people have said that actually has turned out better than they thought. Do you think it's working?
Oh, absolutely. The market screams that it's working. No less than 9 new businesses along that corridor. And it wasn't a national award, it was an international award.
Okay.
And so that in and of itself, we competed against 2 other projects over in China, and we were fortunate enough to win.
So that is Cedar Falls Mayor Jim Brown. Coming up next, in alphabetical order, we're going to hear from Councilman Rob Green. We'll be right back. And welcome back to this week's edition of the Steele Report, going in alphabetical order with the Cedar Falls Mayor candidates. We've already heard from Mayor Jim Brown. Next on the list is going to be Councilman Rob Green. Right now, I'd like you to meet candidate Rob Green, who, as you know, is currently a member of the Cedar Falls City Council, one of the 2 at-large members of the Cedar Falls City Council, first elected in 2017, took office January 1st of 2018, and his term runs through December 31st of 2021. So he's going to be a part of Cedar Falls city government regardless of the outcome of the race on Tuesday. Councilman Green works for the University of Northern Iowa, where he is a web developer, and we'll get into a little bit more about his family a little bit later as we talk about the public Safety Officer Program. So I want to start with this, Councilman Green. Why run for mayor? Because you do have influence already right now for at least a little bit more than 2 years in the at-large. So what's the timing on this? Is it all because of the PSO, or why are you running now when you already have pretty good influence? Yeah.
Well, the PSO model is just one aspect of reasons why I'm running. What I've seen in government, there are things that the mayor is responsible for in his role working with council that I believe I could be more effective at in providing information to council and in working to help frame some of these decisions that we'll be dealing with in the years ahead.
How would a Rob Green administration differ from that currently of Mayor Jim Brown?
Well, one of the key parts for me of difference is I have a really strong sense for getting information out to the public so they can view on their own. Part of the reason why I decided to run was seeing some missteps that I felt the mayor had taken in trying to communicate the public safety model and in engaging residents. And the big one being that Currents flyer that came out, I think November or toward the beginning of this year, where he put out information that highlighted negativity toward the firefighters, but didn't do an apples-to-apples comparison with salary for the police officers and firefighters. So I just felt like having the ability to get unbiased information out to the public is key, and it's something that's going to be very different from me and the current mayor.
So you've sided with professional firefighters more or less on this. So tell everyone how you view the public Safety Officer Program, which actually goes back several administrations, beyond Mayor Brown, back to Mayor Cruz, back to Mayor Ed Stakovic. So how do you view the program, whether or not it's working or not?
Well, and just to be clear, it's not that I've sided with the firefighters.
Okay.
I don't have an endorsement from the fire union or from some of the Stand Up for Safety group. They're supportive of my campaign. They like the fact there's a difference, but I want to be clear that it's not that I'm on the firefighters' side on this. My concern is to be on the resident side and to have the information that the public needs to decide what kind of a public safety model we want to have in the future, and to hold the council responsible for accomplishing that.
Yeah, at a recent forum that I had the privilege of co-moderating with Nancy Newhoff, the editor of the Courier, you made a very interesting comment. You said something like you're not in favor of nuking the program, but also expand on that. What do you mean by that? Yeah. So there are some aspects, apparently, that when you say that you like about it. Yeah.
Right, and I think residents need to understand that there are, it's a very complex program, and there are aspects of it that I appreciate, like the cross-training aspect, the ability to have first responders on scene, whether they're in a police officer's uniform or a firefighter's uniform. So I'm fine with that. It's when we get into replacing the career firefighters with public safety officers, I think that in the long run, if we go with that model where there are no traditional firefighters, I think it's going to be to the detriment of the city.
So as you view it, in your viewpoint on this, when a Cedar Falls police officer arrives at the scene of a fire, are they a police officer, a PSO, or a firefighter, and do they need to change uniforms at that time? How do you view that as it's working out right now?
Right, that's the big question right now is, if a public safety officer is reporting to a fire scene, are they under the command of the incident commander at the time? Or do they self-identify or self-report whether or not they're going to perform in the firefighter role? My view, and I believe it should be city policy and our standard operating guidelines, that a public safety officer who arrives on scene should suit out in PPE right away, be in gear, ready, the turnout gear, ready to respond and act, and not ask the incident commander, do you need me for this?
Okay.
Because there's just not time in a life and death scenario to make those kind of decisions.
So the numbers really show, I mean, Cedar Falls has less than 10 fires a year, so most of the calls are police calls, probably by several hundred, if not several thousand, a lot of ambulance calls. Your wife, Jocelyn, is a Waterloo native. You have two children, age 13, Elsa, and age 11, Ethan. So talking about your kids when you answer this, safety is obviously their top priority. So with your kids in mind, tell us why you think the city is as safe or not as safe as it was prior to the PSO program.
Well, for the safety of my family right now, I don't have concerns with the ability, and especially in the downtown area, for fire response if we had a fire in our home. And I believe that the first responders, no matter what their title, are going to do their best to extinguish the fire. So life and safety, not a concern for me. My major concern with the model is moving forward, how do we ensure that somebody who's being expected to cross-train and to be skilled as both an expert firefighter and an expert police officer, how do we have credentials and certifications and continual training to make sure that they're able to do those very difficult dual roles? I don't think that we have that in place right now, and I would want to see something along the lines of biannual certification, and if somebody cannot perform in the role of that higher level, they drop to being a police officer or a firefighter. It should be an extremely high coveted credential to be a public safety officer and worth that extra salary.
Would you say that is the defining issue of this campaign, the PSO? Even though I know you don't want to talk about a lot of other things, but is that really the defining issue?
I believe it is, and also in that definition, it's that the idea of what's the core issue? Former Councilor Tiber said at our last forum that he saw it as a labor issue.
Right, I had that as my notes here.
Yes,
yeah.
and I think and I know for a fact it's more in depth than that, and there are actual structural concerns and training and resourcing concerns that the firefighters have brought up, and I feel like it's falling on deaf ears at City Hall, and that's what I want to change.
Okay, let's move away just for a moment because we're running really quickly out of time, but what is the key issue beyond the PSO program for the city of Cedar Falls? If you become mayor, what is your top priority then?
Well, my highest priority is just restoring confidence and trust in local government. Some of the basic things that I believe that the mayor needs to keep in mind is we had a special meeting back in, I believe it was March of this past year, that was done with just 24 hours notice. It was done during a work day, so it was 3:30. Public really couldn't attend. It wasn't easy to do that. And there are dozens of small decisions like that that help people feel like they're being led through good governance. And some of it's going to be boring. I could go into this huge litany of things that I'll do differently, and it's not exciting for the newscast, but I would love to see government be a little bit more boring.
Because one thing on your Facebook page, you say transparency is really a critical part of what you believe, your philosophical belief about government, right?
Correct, and that's a great point. I think one of the key differences in philosophy between Mayor Brown and me is he comes at government as a salesman and a marketer, and that's his background. I personally feel like he works to sell other people on ideas, where I'm coming at this with a librarian's background and training. And I believe information sharing, providing residents with the ability to know the data that we received in order to make decisions is one of the most important things we can do. So transparency isn't just a bullet point for me, it's how I've carried out my city council role, and it's how I'll also perform as mayor.
So that was City Council member Rob Green, a candidate for Cedar Falls Mayor. Next, we're going to hear from the third candidate. That is Jim Skein. That's coming up next. And welcome back to this week's edition of the Steele Report. The third of our Cedar Falls mayoral candidates. You've already heard from Jim Brown and Rob Green. Now we'll hear from Jim Skein. So right now, let's meet our third candidate in alphabetical order for mayor of Cedar Falls. This is Jim Skein, a resident of the city since 1965 and making his second run for mayor of Cedar Falls, having lost to current mayor Jim Brown a couple of years ago in 2017. Mr. Skein is 83. He taught at the University of Northern Iowa from 1965 until his retirement around 1999. And while he was at UNI, he served as the president and chief negotiator for UNI's United Faculty. He was also, during that time, the chair of the Grievance Committee. So he ran for Congress as a Democrat twice back in the early 1970s. And you know, Jim, you describe yourself as an advocate for the people of Cedar Falls. So expand on that a little bit. I know you have that group called Advocates for the People of Cedar Falls that you founded a couple of years ago. So tell me about that. Yeah.
As I looked around Cedar Falls, I found that there were a lot of problems that were beginning and that were not being addressed by the city council. And so I formed Advocates for the People of Cedar Falls.
The Cedar Falls City Council meeting, and if I watch their cable telecast or something like that, you are in there advocating for the people, and a lot of times that's a criticism directed at the current administration or something that's happening. So what is your biggest concern about what's happening in Cedar Falls right now?
Well, I have more than one concern. Obviously, fire safety is a major one because the city council has made the wrong decisions. The building the public safety building was a mistake. Then I'm concerned about University Avenue, which is under this administration has been broken as a corridor. It was always a corridor. And then another area that I'm concerned about is what has happened to the University of Northern Iowa. And in that situation, I have worked, and actually another area that I'm concerned about is the fact that the people are paying the price for the accelerated economic development. So there were a number of issues, and what I've done is research those issues and come up with solutions that I think will take care of the difficulties that people are having.
So if you are elected mayor this time around, what would you do with the public safety officer program?
Well, of course, the public safety officer program, I would eliminate that. And of course, we have a different situation now than we've had for the last 5 years, that the mayor has been restored as the leader of the city, and therefore the mayor will be able to set the agenda for meetings, and that will be one of the first things that I would work to have.
Now, a lot of cities do have city managers, or in this case, we're talking about Cedar Falls, the city administrator. Have you been critical of that position too?
It was illegal. They didn't do it right. They're supposed to have a petition of the people and a vote of the people in order to change the form of government. And in that particular case, they didn't do either of those. The only thing that they did was pass the ordinance on June 23rd, 2014 with a 7-0 vote. But Robert says that unless you follow the rules, a vote like that is null and void.
Let's say that they went ahead and followed the Robert's Rules of Order and had passed it legally. Would you be in favor of a city administrator position?
No, because the city administrator position takes the decision as to who is the leader of the city away from the people. It's anti-democratic.
Okay. So let me ask you about, you've been critical of the closure of some of the fire stations, particularly in North Cedar, and we talked about that with Mayor Brown earlier in this program. So what would you do if elected mayor as far as the fire stations?
Well, I would open all 3 fire stations and fully staff them. Fire Station 2 in North Cedar, it has been closed since 2008, and the danger to the people has increased. I mean, we've had dangerous fires. They've put Northern Industrial Park out there. I mean, it is totally unrepresented, and by building the public safety building, what they've done is moved fire protection 7 miles away from the people.
Yeah, you've described the public safety officer program, and I heard you at a recent forum that I had a chance to co-moderate, abomination. So explain that. What do you mean by that?
Well, because it leaves people unsafe. I mean, not only the people out in the North Cedar area, but if you go down to Rainbow to the city limits, they're also about 7 miles away from the public safety building. So they say, well, of course, for the police, they're out patrolling all the time, but for the fire rescue, they're up there, and they don't even properly man the 18th Street station. So the real point is that people are not protected. Now, for me and for many others, we're paying the price in our homeowners insurance. Mine has tripled in the last 5 years.
So that's it for this week's edition of the Steele Report. You've heard from all three of the candidates for Cedar Falls Mayor. Big races coming up in Cedar Falls for the council as well on Tuesday. That's it for this week's program. We'll see you back here next week.